Illegal dumping and littering is a concern across the Gladstone region, with over 134 offences in the last 18 months. Our region is beautiful, but there are a few bad apples that ruin it for the rest of us, and they need to clean up their act.
Commonly found items at illegal dumping sites across the region include car bodies and batteries, mattresses, tyres, white goods and furniture, and green waste. These items can be disposed of at any of the region's waste transfer stations, some of them even for free.
Illegal dumping and littering pollutes our environment, harms plants and animals, and detracts from the enjoyment of our public spaces. It can lead to stormwater and ocean pollution, with large amounts of plastic, sugar sachets, and cigarette butts caught in stormwater traps and grates.
It's cheaper for everyone to dispose of waste correctly. Illegal dumping and littering costs our ratepayers thousands of dollars each year in waste management and clean-up. It's also costly for our dumper, with penalties of up to $10,000.
We can all work together to keep our region beautiful and dispose of waste responsibly by placing rubbish in the bins, or even holding onto the rubbish until you're near a suitable bin, and using our local waste facilities. Don't be part of the problem of pollution. We want you to be a part of the solution.
From towns to the bush, illegal dumping and littering is everybody's responsibility. Protect our public spaces and natural environment by doing the right thing for today and tomorrow.
If you see illegal dumping,
Dob in a dumper.
See it,
Report it,
stop it.
Well, good morning. The time being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting of the Gladstone Regional Council for the 21st of November 2023. The first item on the agenda is apologies, councillors, and we have received an apology from Councillor Cameron, who was representing council at a finance summit. Can I have a mover for that apology, please? Thank you, Councillor Goodluck. Second to Councillor Churchill. Put the motion all in favour. It's carried. The next item on the agenda is messages of condolence. Do we have any messages of condolence? No messages of condolence. The next item is, of course, our prior notifications of conflicts of interest. Tanya.
No notifications, Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. As usual, please let us know if any conflicts become obvious during the council meeting. The next item before we move to the confirmation of the minutes in our deputation this morning is the Mayor's statement on current events and current issues, and I would just like to mention two of our Gladstone region residents. Firstly, starting with Jeff Wilkinson, who was celebrated for more than 40 years volunteering for Scouts across central Queensland, but notably, obviously, the Calliope Scout group in recent years. So that was held on Saturday the 11th November at the Calliope Scout Den, and supported there by many members of the community and family and friends as well, and of course his Scout family too. So well done to Jeff and of course his family, who have been a big part of the scouting community in the Gladstone region for many years. And then at our last local disaster management group meeting, we presented Doug Savage, our local SES controller, with the keys to the city. Doug has volunteered for the SES for more than 45 years and has been an important part of our local disaster management group, and we're honoured to thank Doug for his service to our community. As I said, volunteering for the SES for more than 45 years. He's been involved in the Volunteer Marine Rescue, he's been involved in the Brisbane to Gladstone Yacht Race, and just an all-round awesome bloke. So very honoured to present the keys to the city to Doug Savage on the 15th of November. Upcoming in the Gladstone region, of course, we have the combined Christmas street party and the Mayor's Carols on Friday the 1st of December. Sponsored by Santos GLNG and supported by 4CC, and of course our, as I said, our Gladstone Regional Council Christmas Street Party this year combined into one event at the GPC Marina Parklands, 5 p.m. from the 1st of December. Will be a fantastic night. Of course, we've got our Youth Council nominations are still open for the 2024 Youth Council. That's for young people aged 15 to 24. They close on the 4th of December, and encouraging any of our high school students or our those who just recently left high school to consider nominating for our Gladstone Region Youth Council. And of course the Youth Council get involved in events like our Festival of Summer, and Festival of Summer tickets are on sale now. That's the event hosted on the 8th to the 12th of January next year, where there's a whole bunch of activities from fast carts to Days in Agnes surfing and out to Lady Musgrave Island. It's just a fantastic week-long event for kids in the Gladstone region. Of course, we also welcome kids outside the region to this festival as well. And it wraps up with the Festival of Summer Sounds on Friday, the 12th of January as well. But that is for 13 to 17-year-olds, whereas all the other activities are for 11 to 17-year-olds. So fantastic week-long event in the Gladstone region, keeping those kids amused and entertained just at the time of the Christmas holidays when they start to get bored. And of course, don't forget, councillors and those watching on live stream, our New Year's Eve party will be hosted again at the GPC Marina Parklands on Sunday the 31st of December. Councillors, the next item on the agenda is the confirmation of the minutes, and G2.1 is the confirmation of the general meeting minutes of the 7th of November. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Seconded, Councillor O'Grady. There's no business arising. I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is our deputation, and can I welcome to the chambers this morning Phil Richardson, Michael and Rob, and of course Peter Masters. He's sitting in the gallery there. Peter, a former councillor of the Gladstone Regional Council, who's involved with the Sandwell team. But Phil, I believe you'll be leading this, and I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor and councillors, for having us an opportunity to provide an update on the Central Queensland Hydrogen Project. I'd just like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today and pay my respect to elders past and present. Certainly as part of the project that we're doing, our engagement with the PCCC and the First Nations people here in Gladstone is a very, very important part of what we're doing. So we look forward to continuing that work as we continue through the project. So today I wanted to give you an update on where we're at with the CQH2 project. First I'll give you an update on, or an overview of what the project is and why we're doing it, and then we'll move through and give you some key characteristics and some of the key features of what we're doing. So first of all, I guess CQH2, what is it? It's a large-scale renewable hydrogen project based here in Gladstone. There's really two focus areas for this project. We're producing renewable hydrogen. We want to supply that through to both the domestic market and the export market. So there's a number of large industrial customers here in Central Queensland that can use hydrogen in different forms. As well as that, we're seeing growing demand internationally for hydrogen as well. And so we're looking to export and create a new export market for the state. So there's four key features of the project. First is a renewable hydrogen production facility, the HPF, which you can see at the bottom of the map there. That will produce renewable hydrogen using a process called electrolysis, where we take electricity and water, use the electrical current to split the water and create a hydrogen molecule. So that HPF will be based at Aldoga near Gladstone. We'll then have a hydrogen transfer facility or a pipeline which will carry that hydrogen to a number of different end users. That will include the supply of hydrogen to an ammonia production facility, and secondly, the development of a hydrogen liquefaction facility which will be at Gladstone Port and also ship loading facilities. So this map shows a different view on that supply chain. You can see down the left-hand corner the Aldoga plot that we've secured from the Queensland Government through an option to purchase. That's where the HPF will be based. The yellow line is the hydrogen gas pipeline, which will take the hydrogen through to Gladstone Port, where it will be supplied to the ammonia plant and also to the liquefaction facility. Above the HPF, you can see an area there which is where the Aldoga solar farm is being developed. So that's being developed by Acciona, and we've secured a 15-year power purchase agreement from Acciona to supply the solar energy for the project to produce hydrogen. This is all based, of course, around the Gladstone State Development Area, which is zoned for heavy industrial development. We've got a number of other features here, so you can see the transmission line, so we're connecting into the Larkin Creek substation for the hydrogen production facility and the Calliope River substation for the hydrogen liquefaction facility. There at the port, you can see the area that's called Fisherman's Landing 5, which is the existing area of the port. And to the north of that are the areas that are being reclaimed by Gladstone Ports Corporation, and that will be where the hydrogen liquefaction facility will be based. So I suppose to talk about the why of this project, we know that the world's moving rapidly towards decarbonisation, and there's a really important role for hydrogen in that picture. So a lot of processes we believe will use direct electrification, and that's probably the first choice for decarbonising, is to use renewable electricity directly in processes. But there's also a lot of countries and a lot of industries where electricity can't be used directly for their processes, and that's where hydrogen is quite important. So in things like high temperature processes like the production of ammonia, but also in countries where they don't have access to renewable energy, that's where hydrogen can play a really important role. So this is an opportunity. With the global demand for hydrogen rising so rapidly, it's a great opportunity for Central Queensland and for Australia to capitalise on that, because we've got a lot of the natural advantages that go into the production of hydrogen, particularly availability of great renewable resources, land, workforce, and all the things that we know have helped Central Queensland be a success in the past and currently. So to show you the supply chain in a different view, these are the key elements that go into producing hydrogen and the key outputs that come out of that. So we can see there that renewable energy will be required for the production of hydrogen. We expect about 7 to 9 gigawatts of renewable energy will be required. Those projects are already under development, as we're seeing with the Aldoga solar farm and several other wind farms that we've also secured in the region, or development rights to those wind farms. So 7 to 9 gigawatts in total. Those projects are being developed separately to CQH2, so they're being done through various developers as well as through Stanwell. Then we'll have hydrogen production, which will be 2,500 megawatts of hydrogen electrolyzers, producing about 800 tonnes per day of hydrogen at ultimate capacity. That 800 tonnes per day of hydrogen will go into two different end uses. One is the ammonia, which I mentioned, so half the production will go to ammonia and the other half will go to liquefaction. So the ammonia itself will be then a split purpose for that. So some of that ammonia will be used domestically within Central Queensland to displace the use of existing grey ammonia that's already imported into the region. So that ammonia, as you would be aware, is used for things like the production of explosives and also for fertilisers. With the liquefied hydrogen, that will be then liquefied and shipped over to particularly Japan. So that's the main focus for that, where it will be utilised for things like power generation. So where are we at with the project? We've just commenced our FEED study. So we did a detailed feasibility study which finished up in 2022. We've now secured funding to move into our FEED, which is, it sounds like it's just a desktop study, but it's really a significant exercise that we need to do to get the project to a point where we're ready for a final investment decision. So we were able to secure 117 million for that FEED study. 82 million of that is coming from our consortium members, who are a mix of 3 Japanese companies and 1 Singaporean company, as well as Stanwell. So that's a huge commitment from those partners for a project. It hasn't reached FID yet, and yet we're seeing that significant commitment. We believe this is the largest investment that's been made into a large-scale renewable hydrogen project in Australia to date. So it's a great vote of confidence for the region and for the project. We've also secured $20 million from the Australian Renewable Energy Agency and $15 million from the Queensland Government. So we signed our participation agreement and commenced our FEED in May. And we're aiming to, subject to successful completion of FEED, planning a final investment decision for late 2024, early 2025, and then commercial operations planned to commence from 2028. We think this project is quite well advanced compared to most of the other projects around the country. So to give you an idea, at this stage, there's only one other project, large-scale project, that has commenced FEED, or that's announced FEED, and that is the Gibson Island project in Brisbane. So other than that, we're the only project that's at FEED. You can see a number of milestones we've already passed, which I've mentioned here, and moving to FID and then commercial operations. That commercial operations will occur over several phases. So the first 200 tonnes per day, as I said, will be from 2028, but ultimately the project will reach full scale in 2031. All right, I'm going to pass over to Rob to talk about some of the social and community aspects.
Thanks, Phil. So we engaged Deloitte to undertake a economic-wide modelling estimate of the net impacts from an economic growth perspective, and including jobs that will be a result of the industry. What this slide shows is that there'll be an increase of jobs of 8,936 jobs over and above business as usual. You can see in here that's a peak of 4,160 for central Queensland. The project will deliver $17.2 billion in hydrogen exports and $12.4 billion to Queensland's gross state product over the 30-year life.
Over to me. I'll slide over. That's all good. A key part of our execution and operation planning is understanding our workforce requirements. So we've sort of two stages to that. You've got the operational workforce requirements, which are significant, but they're steady, stable jobs. We see that as something that will be reasonably easily managed. And then we have the challenge for any major construction project is an influx of jobs that will change over time in terms of trade requirements and skill sets, in fairly significant numbers to a regional town, a regional city like Gladstone. So what we've put up on the screen behind you is our current understanding of those workforce requirements. So as we work through FEED, we'll understand the detail behind that. Those numbers will change, and the timing of those numbers will change. The curve will definitely shift around, but we think in terms of an order of magnitude, those numbers will be reasonably close to what we will be requiring as a workforce. So that gives us the challenge of how do we ensure that the project has a positive benefit to the local community in terms of the jobs that are going to be required for execution ultimately through the operation stage. And there's a number of factors that we consider there, and we'll understand over the next 2-3 months the detail behind those numbers. So what skills do we need? What resources do we need? At what times? What have we got locally? So what skills are available within local businesses in the community? What skills are available locally for us to potentially, directly hire? And then from there, we'll work with stakeholders like the Gladstone Regional Council and understand, what are the priorities and objectives of the local community. We don't want to come here and harm local businesses. We want to maximise opportunities, and it's like everything we do in this project is how do we achieve our project objectives whilst also maximising the benefits to the local community and minimising any negative impacts. And the workforce strategies will be a key part of that. So once we've understood sort of local requirements, what we can source locally from a resource perspective, we'll start looking at regional Queensland, sort of casting the net a little bit wider. What can we source locally? And then once we've sort of bottomed out those sort of two sets of resource pools, we'll start to try and understand where will we get the rest of the resources from. So Queensland, potentially Australia, potentially even internationally for some of the key resources we're going to require for a project like this. So then that leads us to thinking about some of the key considerations around how do we then maximise and or minimise the negative impact, maximise the positive impact, minimise the negative impact on Gladstone. And again, that's going to be working with local stakeholders, including the council, around what's our strategy for accommodating the workforce who aren't locals. So the local people will have transport, they'll have accommodation already in the region. What do we do about the people that we're going to have to bring potentially from regional Queensland? Are we organising buses? Are we letting people drive themselves here? These sorts of considerations that we need to work with the stakeholder groups, including the council, to work through. And then all the way through to if we get to a point where we do need to import resources from interstate or interstate, what's the strategy there? And we feel that we need to control all of that. So if we are going to be bringing a large number of workers from interstate or interstate. We want to ensure that we're not impacting on Gladstone's local services, things like flights, local medical facilities. So ensuring that our workforce strategy is developed to meet the needs of the project, but also balance the requirements of the community, ensure that we have as I keep saying, positive impact and maximize the benefits of the project and maximize the benefits that all of these jobs have the potential to bring to the region.
And I think I might just add that we're also looking at the cumulative impacts of the other workforces and projects in the area, and working closely through the Alliance to make sure that we take that into consideration. Community acceptance. So we've kicked off our social performance studies, and that includes community engagement. So in feasibility, we completed a couple sessions of engagements, and then last week we also hosted community engagements, which raises a few of the issues there on the screen: housing, safety, water, and environmental impacts. But I think with the current cost of living going up, we've noticed a difference in the engagement with the community where it's more focused around the housing impacts, the healthcare impacts, childcare and education. We're seeing that increase in that engagement and people displaying that those are the issues, and it's really focused on that. And our next sessions will be working with the community to work through what are those mitigations, what are the thoughts from the community, and what can we do as being part of the community. This project isn't going to solve everything, but we want to be part of the community and come up with community-led mitigation. So you'll see us in the community a lot more. Obviously, we've got Peter Masters on board, face of CQH2 in Gladstone. And I guess where we're trying to focus our efforts is grassroots. So you'll see us at the H2 Grand Prix with Gladstone State School. So we've sponsored two groups out of the Gladstone State School for that initiative, where kids get to learn about hydrogen. Most of the kids in Gladstone probably have more experience than the Gladstone or the hydrogen industry in general. So it's great to see the excitement around the kids, and hopefully they bring that home to their parents, and that grows the hydrogen knowledge. Also, Dory Day is the First Nations Career Day, which is again grassroots and getting people to understand what are the opportunities in the hydrogen industry and how do they get involved, and answering all the questions from a grassroots point of view. And we're just increasing our footprint and increasing in Gladstone and raising our profile as a hydrogen project. Next slide, Matt.
Okay, finally, a big focus for us is on training opportunities, innovation and partnerships. So on the training side, we've partnered with Central Queensland University to look at developing training courses and opportunities across both renewable energy and hydrogen as well. So that's included helping CQ develop a Hydrogen 101 training session, which they've tested on our people. So that's an important partnership. We're also doing a Future Energy Innovation and Training Hub, which is happening at Stanwell Power Station. That was announced a couple of months ago. And that will be a hub for testing technologies, but also a hub for training the workforce, so that whether that be our existing workforce that's looking for opportunities to transition into renewables and hydrogen, or indeed other workforces as well. But because we'll be deploying the technologies on site there at scale, it gives a unique opportunity for people to get trained on the kit in a real setting. We've also led the Central Queensland Hydrogen Hub, which recently received $69.2 million from the Australian government. That's an initiative that will be both domestic-focused projects, but also the development of common user infrastructure, such as pipelines that can be used by the industry, and hopefully through those partnerships form, I guess, a different approach to how we develop this industry. So look, I'm conscious we've gone 1 minute over time, but thanks very much for your time, and certainly happy to take any questions. Thanks.
It's usually our fault that we go over time, but thank you. You could have, I would listen to that all day. Absolutely love this project. Obviously, I've met with your partners in Japan, with the Premier. Very excited to see this project moving, and I'm looking forward to the financial investment decision, which I have no doubt will be to proceed. And I think you've got the right person in Peter Masters, being the face of, well, the issues you raised, you've got them all. Like, we've done our 10-year roadmap, learning from what happened with LNG, and you've highlighted them. You've said housing, which is an issue right now. You've, what else? You've talked about childcare, absolutely is going to be a bigger issue than it already is. We had situations where you couldn't get childcare in Gladstone during LNG booms. The flights, I heard you gently mention those, but that is going to be another issue, and not just because of your project, because of all the projects that are coming. Gladstone region residents need to be able to get on a plane and not spend $500 to get to Brisbane. You can fly to New Zealand cheaper sometimes than you can get to Brisbane. The first leg of the journey is usually the most expensive. Sorry?
You can get to Melbourne cheaper.
You can definitely get to Melbourne cheaper on Bonza. Give them a bit of a plug. Actually, ridiculously, if you had the time, it is sometimes cheaper to fly Gladstone, Melbourne, Melbourne, Brisbane than Gladstone, Brisbane direct. That's not a joke, that's actual fact. I've looked at it myself, I just don't have the time to do that. But something else you did mention is safety in the list there, and not that we're very proud of it, but one night during the LNG boom, we had more arrests in the main street of Gladstone than in King's Cross, and we don't want to see that happen again either. So LNG had a rule: if you were in the courts on Friday or Monday morning, you didn't work there Tuesday afternoon. So I'd love to send that message to anyone visiting, to wanting to work in our region from Sydney, Brisbane or Melbourne, that behave yourself or don't come back, realistically. And I love the fact that you want to employ a local workforce, but we understand there's not going to be enough locals to work there, which is great because people who move here and behave themselves can be new locals. I'm sure there's a million questions, councillors. I'll throw around the room. Councillor Hanson.
Just something that jumped out at me, the first dot point of the community part, meaningful social investment that meets community needs with sustained long-term benefits. We've had a lot of input from previous proponents in town that have just been piecemeal things, and that's not bad because clubs have benefited by that too as well. But I think it's time when we move into the next move, and I think, I'm going to say Councillor Masters, it's a long time ago. I think Peter understands what I'm talking about when we're looking for investments that may be a little bit bigger, but just the one investment to better the lifestyle here in Gladstone. And a big one of that is health, I guess, and that's a difficult one, but I'm sure Peter will talk to you about that one.
No doubt. Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Phil, Mick and Rob. Obviously, Stanwell's an exciting project, not just for our region, but you know, in the global race to decarbonisation. So, appreciate you coming in to give us an update today. With the workforce issues, obviously there's a delicate balance between, you know, taking locals from other industry sectors, etc., and then obviously bringing in FIFO or drive-in, drive-out workforce. You may not have, obviously, that balance articulated or defined as of yet, but what can you give me some insight into what will your approach be to sort of give as many opportunities to locals first, and then obviously when the need arises to go out, or is there a different approach that you're planning on taking there?
Well, I think there's a number of ways of doing it. I've seen it done really well. I wasn't in Gladstone for the LNG boom. I worked in Darwin and then Western Australia, so I've seen it done really well, and I've seen the other side of the coin. So I think the key for us is, what does the local community think? You know, we can come here and we can set down targets, which projects typically do. Oh, we want 10% or 15% or whatever it is, local participation. Is that the right answer for Gladstone? What are your views? What are the views of the various sort of business entities, and I suppose Chamber of Commerce, GEA, those entities that actually understand the local industry better than we do? We're happy to be informed with what those local views are. So we don't have any specific, we're going to target this, but I think it's maximise local benefits, local opportunity, local employment opportunities, especially where those are execution roles that we can transfer into operation, because obviously the operations roles are what we're really after here for sort of long-term consistent employment. So I think it's how can we engage as many locals as we can without impacting the business, because we hear that a lot. That's something we have heard very strongly so far from local businesses from what happened in the LNG booms. So how do we maximize local participation, getting that balance right? And that's not going to be easy, and we won't get it right. It won't be perfect. We'll do our best, but it's never going to be 100%, because I don't think we'll never be able to keep everyone happy. But yeah, how do we maximize local engagement? And then I think it's sort of casting the net to the next stage, which is regional. So I think it's priority local, second priority regional, and then it's Queensland, Australia, and then when we do struggle to find some certain skills, exotic metal welders and stuff, we'll potentially have to look overseas for some of those skills if we get there. So I think it's those sort of five steps: local, regional, Queensland, Australian based, and then overseas for that.
No, thank you. And I think I should probably say, I think Stanwell should be congratulated too. I know you've had a number of community forums already, even though you're nearly 2 years out from your final investment decision. So the approach that you're taking is very proactive, and that's something that's been called for from our community, and you guys have listened to that. So that's great to see, and I guess you can only do what you can do. But the other thing with I think it was about 400 operational jobs. Is there, and you're partnered with the CQ Uni, are these jobs sort of traditional trade-based jobs or process tech jobs, or are they, what percentage of them would be totally new jobs that have a total new qualification or certification, or is there more sort of traditional that might just need some upskilling, up training, that sort of thing, or?
I think it's all existing. To answer your question as best I can at this point, we're still understanding how to operate a plant of this size, because there's no plant in the world. Biggest plant in the world is probably 10 times smaller than what we're talking about in terms of the production. The liquefaction's a little bit like LNG, a little bit cooler, but that's similar. So those roles will essentially be almost transferable skills on a role-for-role basis. The production facility is a little bit different. They will be traditional roles, but they're going to need new skills. I think a key challenge we see is hazardous area electricians. There won't be enough electricians who have the experience in working in intrinsically safe environments like LNG plants or hydrogen production facilities in Queensland or Australia to do what we need to do or what we're planning to do as a country. So that's a key focus as we see it. But I think, to answer your question, it's more upskilling existing resources, training some of those trades to do something that's a little bit different in terms of operating a production facility. But I don't believe there will be any new trades created unless, I think one thing we've talked about in terms of renewables boom is we've got a sort of trade base, I think globally, but certainly in Australia, that's quite old fashioned. My AGM talks about boilermakers. Boilermakers don't make boilers anymore. Do we need a workforce that's more? But you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Do we need a workforce?
We don't need boilers anymore.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Do we need a workforce that's more diverse and more multi-skills? And you see the sort of civil industry taking to it more than sort of your process and mechanical-based trades, because they're probably less licensed and potentially less trained. But I think the civil industry, you look at especially remote sites, you've got a resource base that tend to do your steel fixing, your concrete pouring, your carpentry. I think that's probably where we need to get to in the renewable space. And I think hydrogen won't be any different to that. It's not necessarily creating new trades, but maybe combining some of the existing trades into sort of multifunctional resources that can do more than one thing.
And I just noticed before I give someone else a go, I think it mentioned there was a ship in design phase, is it, or in production? Is this a whole brand new ship, or is it like a retrofitted LNG ship?
Never been done before.
Never been done before.
So the spheres that hydrogen's stored in are materially different to the spheres you get on a LNG tanks. The technology is materially different. So the biggest ship in the world was constructed by the company who we're referring to here, Kawasaki Heavy Industries. I think it holds 2,500 cubic meters of hydrogen, liquid hydrogen. I think they've transported about 50 kilograms so far. The ship that KHI are currently designing for this project, that might change, might be a slightly smaller version initially, but the ship they're currently designing, and we've based the project on, is 160,000 cubic meters. So the biggest LNG ship that you can imagine, a full-size Panamax. that's the size you're talking about. And we've been working with GPC around, can we actually, fit that in the port, and what does it look like? And we've actually run the ship simulation for a QMAX, and it works. We can, the very talented pilots at GPC can get it in and out of the harbour, but it's a big boat.
I bet you there's a few boiler makers that'll be building it, but
Yeah, a few boiler makers with very specialist, exotic
Equipment.
metal
the
capability. Yeah.
the 800. Sorry, what was the unit measurement?
Tons per day.
Tons per day. Sorry. Yep. Is that so? That fits demand for how long? And then is there potential if the demand grows, which I guess we forecast it will at some point in future? Is there potential for further expansion, or that will be suitable for the foreseeable future?
Well, it meets all of our current off-taker requirements. So we've got an ammonia company, so they can set up in Gladstone again. They'll create jobs, and we'll integrate our construction with them because they'll be part of the project. And then the liquefaction piece. So ultimately, the liquefaction component could take up to 800 tons a day in its own right, and that's what we're designing for. The ammonia plant will be designed for that 400 tons. So we've designed a plant that will operate at that initial 800 tons, but has the ability to scale up to 1,200, and that's really based on utilization of renewable energy. And our view is, when the grid becomes greener and firmer, we can scale up our utilization. It's actually quite low at the minute, so we match our production of gaseous hydrogen to suit the off-peak electricity demand periods. So we're effectively using up the surplus electricity in the grid. I'd love to say it's free, but it's certainly not free, but it's electricity that would potentially have been, renewable energy that would potentially have been curtailed. So to answer your question, we think we've dealt with our off-takers' requirements, but, what we see from, wider off-takers and even our off-takers, they would take 10 times more than we could ever produce as a state, as a country, based on the current technology, and that technology will evolve. But in terms of global demand for hydrogen and demand for hydrogen from Australia, the numbers are almost limitless.
The key challenge at the moment is price. The demand is there, the potential demand's there, but at the moment the cost is sort of well above what off-takers are prepared to pay on their own, which is why you're seeing Hydrogen Head Start program from the Australian government, you're seeing the Inflation Reduction Act in the US that are offering significant price support to help those initial projects get off the ground. That's very important. So unless the cost comes down, I think you won't see that massive demand come through. So it's potential demand. Yeah.
Got a few more questions. Councillor Branthwaite, Councillor Muscat, and Councillor Grady.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mine's two different questions, completely different questions. I notice on your plan there you've got the Calliope River substation. Now, it's going to be supposedly powering the liquefaction plant. Where does it draw its power from? Because it's obviously not off a solar farm, and you'd be obviously trying to keep everything with a nice green tick with it as well.
Yeah. So in terms of the I guess what we call guarantee of origin, which is how do you prove that the hydrogen is green?
Yeah.
The method that the Australian government has established, they've just recently been formalising this under a guarantee of origin scheme, is that every megawatt hour of energy that you use in the production of the hydrogen has to be accompanied by a renewable energy certificate. So effectively we have to either purchase through a power purchase agreement or some other form a renewable energy certificate for each megawatt hour of electricity. So at the moment the requirement is not for that time of day matching where you have to perfectly match the renewable profile with the hydrogen production profile. There are some other countries around the world that are moving in that direction, but in Australia they've said it just needs to be over an annual basis matched so that each megawatt hour is matched with a certificate. So that does just give us a little bit more flexibility, but it also means we access the grid. We're not directly plugging into a solar farm or wind farm. We're doing it through the grid. So even the Aldoga solar farm is connected into the grid, and then we connect into the grid and draw our power through
So they have allocations that they're putting into the grid, and you're actually buying some of that allocation.
Effectively, we're buying that through a certificate mechanism, because of course the grid is just a pool that you put energy into and you draw out of, but that tracking or that origin certificate is done through that certificate that you purchase.
Excellent, thank you very much. The other thing that I was wanting to talk about was the community engagement side of things. Now, Councillor Khan here mentioned about the amount of community engagement that you've been doing, but there's probably a lot of people who've actually missed that communication as far as how can they I suppose connect with you guys to find out where these things are. how do you do that? Do they register for something, or do you put through social media, or put it over across the airways, or do you ring people, or how do you do it? Go Pete.
Yeah, I think so. What we've been doing over the last couple of years is meeting with just different groups and on an invitation on a basis. So we invite the different groups that represent different areas within organizations. We will go wider into the community and get into some of these areas where we can meet.
What sort of groups are you talking about?
Oh, Gladstone Regional Council, we had a group, with the Gladstone Regional Council. We had social housing groups. We've had all different community groups, Rotary, all representing, different facets of community and getting them in. We had, I think, nine sessions over 3 days last week, and then another 2 online. So trying to reach out as far as we can.
Yeah.
We're looking at,
There's probably some genuine people interested, or genuinely interested within the community that aren't connected with those groups.
Yep.
And just wondering how, because there'll be people watching this online, how they can actually connect in.
Yeah, there is, so online we have all our details. People can give us a ring through that or contact us. Peter Masters is up here as well, so we can.
We'll put his phone number out there.
Yeah, put it out there, at the end of the meeting. But yeah, there's ways to get in contact with us. We do have a dedicated social media page and contact details that they can get a hold of us.
So CQH2?
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
And their web address is?
It's on the Stanwell web address, so Stanwell.com. Yeah, there is the CQH2 at Stanwell.com as well, and they can email through that.
Okay, thank you for that.
And also, just with the Dory Day, like you guys were very present at the Dory Day, like it's grown so much, the Dory Day, it's sort of we're running out of room. So there's those sort of things too. I've seen some of your staff at as well, so which has been quite pleasant to see.
Yeah, we'll be at most of the functions in Gladstone, and we'll have stalls so people can come to us, and we plan to come to the community, so we'll be in and around.
Councillor Muscat.
Let's get my thingy on. Hello, I'm Natalia. Thanks for coming, and thanks for the presentation. I just wanted to get your thoughts around a few things that we discuss around here often and more lately. And I note you mentioned some sort of renewal certificate that relates to where you get your power from, electricity. What are your thoughts about the impact, not just from you, but also in the other people that will occupy the state development area when it comes to ratepayer services, or the services that our council provides and maintained by local ratepayers, so sewage, roads, waste, and are those at all involved in this renewal certificate? How do you see your role in assisting or dealing with the needs that we have? Obviously, there's going to be a lot happening, a lot of pressure on the infrastructure that we already have, and we are working towards understanding how to do that, but sometimes it's difficult because, we are moving, we can't tell what's going to happen in the future, but to me that's something that I'm sure lots of people will want to know, because while it is, I think it's very positive, the move that we're making in relation to renewable energy and all those sort of things, there's also people that are worried, and I am too, as to how we're going to manage all that extra pressure that comes from doing this, and the fact that it's a state development area and is using our infrastructure. Thank you.
I can probably comment on the wastewater particularly as an example, and then Rob can probably speak to the rest. So one of the things we identified early on was that at the moment there isn't really a sufficient wastewater system within that state development area to deal with the kind of volumes that we're talking about. So one of the great things about our project is, and with hydrogen generally, is that because we're basically taking water and then demineralising it, what we call our surplus industrial water that's left over is very high quality. So there's a high potential for maybe up to 50% of that to be reused by industry. But at the moment, there isn't the infrastructure in that state development area to do that. And so one of the things we've done as a project to try and develop, I guess, a common use infrastructure facility around wastewater. So we've done some workshops recently. I think last week we did one with a number of different companies, and I think council was involved as well, to look at establishing a common user wastewater facility. We like to call it surplus industrial water because we think that's really what it is. But if we can actually work together with other users, there's potential for us to create new infrastructure, but also to reuse about 50% of our water stream within those existing industrial facilities. So that's going to actually be a benefit to the broader community because you're going to see that water reused and you're going to see new infrastructure created. So that's the dream, or that's the hope, but at the moment we're just at the planning phase. But it's probably an example of how we're trying to work in that space. But I don't know, Rob, if you want to talk about any of the other services.
Yeah, I guess the sewage question is that there is no sewage services where our Aldoga site is located, or Northern Trade Precinct at the moment, so we'll have to be self-sufficient there. So we'll be utilizing whether it's sewage treatment or septic systems for those, or just, if we have a large construction workforce, then we also look at potentially trucking that as well. So
I think the hard services are easy. I think independence is the key to any project success. So I think the hard services are easy. The softer services, that's, I think, more challenging, and that's, I think, work we need to do with the council in terms of how do we become a net benefit to that, not a draw on that. But yeah.
Well, and I guess with some of the other proponents, I don't know, but I'm assuming you will talk, or do you talk to other people? Because obviously there's no point having, you could do it, but you'll spend more money and more resources if you don't work together on some of these things.
Yeah, that's right. And what Phil was talking about there earlier was a workshop that brought all the different industry potential users and producers all together in one room to co-facilitate what that water network could look like. Yeah. And from that, we'll develop a water balance for the state development area.
Yeah, that I guess, if you were asked me as to, what I think, some of people like you will like to or need to do in our community, it's maybe just reassure people that you are looking at some of those things because, apart from the pressure on other current industries and how, I guess, you will be requiring, like we would just talk about before, you will be requiring workforce, which it is, people will just go and chase whatever best economical outcome is for them. That's not always great for everyone else. Not everyone can afford the things that others can afford to pay, I'm saying. So, and this is especially one of those, and the things that we would like to see, I would like to see, an improved infrastructure so we can, have that legacy going forward, not just, this happened, we pay for it, and now we have nothing to show for. Again, in relation to some of, housing and health issues that we had in the past. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. And your team are working with, obviously, Gary Scanlon, our Economic Development Specialist, connecting you up with all the other proponents, part of the ecosystem, so that it's not just one proponent. It's all about the cumulative effect. And also with Mark Francis, our Manager of Strategic Asset Performance, about exactly those things, wastewater and water services. And we did that with LNG. We built the sewer, we funded the sewer connection, and they paid that off over a number of years. Now, obviously, you're a long way away from our sewer, but I'm sure there's ways it can work so that, as Councillor Muscat said, there's benefits ongoing for those kind of assets, because people think about the big events like our harbour festivals and our shows, and also the sporting events and community events, but that infrastructure that Councillor Mossgate raises is very important, and people just don't realise that as well. So I got Councillor O'Grady was next, then Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. My questions have been answered, but you're probably aware that our sister city in Japan is Saiki City, and they're actually boat builders. They do build big ships there. And when we were there visiting a few years ago, they were saying the city was declining about 1,000 people per year. But wouldn't it be lovely to have that connection of a ship being built in Saiki sister city? I don't know whether they can build ships this big, but yeah. But there may be a possibility. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw it out there, and I think with the connection that Peter's got too, with hopefully be joining our committee soon, so he'll have some outlook on what Saiki City has to offer. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Grady. Councillor Churchill.
Thanks for that, Amendment. Thanks, Phil, Mike. Thanks, Phil, Mike, Rob, Peter. Appreciate that. I think you nearly went to answering my question anyway when we started to talk about shared infrastructure. I think that's where Councillor Muscat was coming from. But yesterday I had the opportunity to see some of the diggings with the pipeline coming from Rocky to Gladstone. You would see that in your travels. It's a massive, massive project. And last week some of us had the opportunity to get an understanding of the future for Cement Australia, and you've got that on your public presentation here today. In relation to pipelines, but there's a lot of learnings from the LNG. Gary would be a testament to that, positive, negative, and in different. So I'm just trying to get an understanding, and you started to touch on it, pipelines, but you started to touch on perhaps a heads of agreement or agreement with other users in relation to infrastructure. But we understand here around the table here and within our community the flow-on benefits that come economically, socially, community-wise. When we talk about industry working with industry, that's that circular economy. So I try to understand whether, and my colleagues around the table would know, I always say that the lead husky goes blind first if they stay out the front the whole time. So. And you're showing some leadership in this from a standalone project, but I'd like to get an understanding if it's industry that's going to lead the potential development, and I know this might have commercial sensitivities, in trying to get together an agreement in relation to shared infrastructure, pipelines to the port, building of the harbour with the Ports Corporation, or will that be done through the Coordinator General's office? Just like to get, if you're allowed to be able to make some comment on that, Phil.
Yeah, look, I think it's a bit of both. I think as industry we have tried to take a lead, and I think through mechanisms like the Central Queensland Hydrogen Alliance, which is a collective of both companies and also the councils involved, and a number of other government-owned entities are involved in that mechanism. So we've already been able to work together to secure that funding, the $69.2 million of funding. Now, around half of that funding, so $30 million of that funding is dedicated to, well, been allocated to CQH2, but we're planning to use that for common user infrastructure. So the intent is that we will put that towards things like the hydrogen gas pipeline. So if I go back here in this map, that route there, the yellow hydrogen gas pipeline route, is quite strategic because there is potential for a number of users to connect into that pipeline. At a very minimum, we would expect to connect in the liquefaction plant and the ammonia plant, and already that's creating it's a common user facility because you've got two different proponents. The ammonia plant is linked to our project, but it's not being developed by us, so it's a separate entity. But if there are other users as well that in that area that can connect in, and we've certainly been discussing with a number of other potential projects, that we could upsize that pipeline further to accommodate those other users. The challenge is always about timing. So there's always a tension or a balancing act with common user is, can we line up the timing such that everyone can join in, or is it just that you can at least get more than one? Then you've actually you've doubled the effect compared to just one entity doing it. So we're pretty confident we'll be able to get at least two. Can we get more than two? We'll have to see how it works in terms of the timing. But that's just one example there. The wastewater we've already talked about, that could potentially be multiple in terms of the reusing our wastewater, but also co-investing in the facilities as well. In terms of the state's role, I think that the Coordinator General's got a really important role to play here as well. They own most of that land. So in terms of establishing things like corridors, when we talk about common user infrastructure, the corridors are just as important in terms of the common user corridors. Because if we can establish a single corridor that can fit, say, a hydrogen gas pipeline and a water pipeline in a single corridor, that's also a more efficient use of land rather than doing multiple corridors in different locations. So we're certainly working with the Coordinator General around that as well to try and line up the corridors with the different pieces of linear infrastructure. It won't be a perfect solution, but again, I think I'm confident we will be one step ahead of a situation where it's just one proponent doing a corridor or a piece of infrastructure. So if that helps.
Yeah, thanks for that, Phil. And my last one's a very quick one, very brief one. As such, with your timelines, 2025, be it 2028 commercial operations, 2028 to 2031. And you talk about community engagement, but if I could just leave one part with you, just understand the importance of industrial tourism to our city and to our region. As you would know, the city has been built upon industry, and now we take a very much a diversified approach to the development of our region, but don't undervalue the significance of industrial tourism. And while you want to engage with our communities and make sure that you are providing them with all the up-to-date information with your development for the future, considering that other people from other parts of the world, when they do come to our region, hopefully to put money into our region and perhaps convert that into living here, that you might consider some aspect or a facility that people could come and see and look and understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually been getting a bit of inspiration by going around to, I was just in Singapore last week looking at some of their facilities and the way that they both design those facilities but then create visitor centres or opportunities for people to come and look at it, understand it better. And I think that's a key feature of the faith that we're doing up at Stanwell Power Station, is that community engagement. But I think also even to the extent that we're going to get a lot of people coming out to Aldoga, we want to have something there that people can look at. And I mean, I'd say we've probably brought, in terms of industrial tourism, I think we've probably brought, 15, 20 groups of Japanese and Singaporeans through Gladstone in the last one a month over the last sort of 12 to 18 months, and they absolutely love it. And they are definitely industrial tourists because they stand on Fisherman's Landing and look out over to Curtis Island, and then we go out to Aldoga, and sometimes they even see a kangaroo. So
yeah, terrific.
Yeah.
Fluoroism at its best. Thank you.
It's not hard to range a kangaroo, but they are usually very overwhelmed at the space and the land availability and the port as well. I got Councillor Trevor, then Councillor Goodluck.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the great presentation. I do worry, having lived in this community for over 60 years and seen the first major development in this community in the late 60s, early 70s, namely QAL, and experienced every boom and bust in this community since, that once again the Gladstone ratepayers will be caught up in what could best be described as another large debt, unless we as community leaders are very careful in the way in which we partnership with you and other major industries to ensure that we are not taken for fools like we were during the LNG boom and left with a massive debt which this council and the previous council have worked tirelessly to reduce but not pay off some 8 years or maybe longer, when probably 12 years since the LNG was first announced in 2009. And I think one of the biggest issues you'll confront as you proceed with this project, if a final investment decision is made, is bringing the community along with you and making sure that the community is not disadvantaged by the mantra that the state government will pursue, and that will be jobs, jobs, jobs and jobs. Because to a large extent that doesn't stick with this community anymore, because they've seen in the past the damage that major projects can cost this community from a social and economic and debt point of view. As I say, this council and previous councils have worked tirelessly to pay off that debt. We're still lumbered with some. We've had no new borrowings for many years, but we would have preferred to have not been put in that position in the first place. So I'm hopeful that the state government and federal government is listening today, that this community doesn't want to suffer the pangs and penalties of new projects coming to this community and costing us a lifelong of debt which we need to pay into the foreseeable future. It's a great project. Please don't get me wrong. I support it 100%, as I've always done in this community since I was a young boy. But I have seen the disadvantages as well as the advantages that these major projects bring to our community. And it's not all beer and skittles for us. It's damn hard work for those who are left to pick up the pieces, as we've done so many times, because the state and federal governments have not been properly partnershiping with us in bringing about industrial growth and prosperity with minimal contribution by the higher tiers of government. So I just raised that as a community member as opposed to a public figure because I intend to retire here. I intend to die here. I will watch these projects unfold with enormous interest. Never in my wildest dreams in a different capacity. When I announced with the then Minister for Infrastructure and Water on Auckland Hill in 2009, $20 million for design and feasibility into the Rockhampton to Gladstone water pipeline, would I ever imagine that hydrogen would be a key factor in the future development of this region? Hydrogen wasn't even talked about, let alone considered as a future energy resource and a clean energy resource for the rest of the world, including but not limited to Australia. I hope your final investment decision works for you and this community. It'll be important for the rest of the world. I hope we don't have to see too much dredging in our Gladstone Harbour in relation to the big ships that are coming our way that you've talked about. I hope that you can perfect the technology so that it makes it commercially viable. And I hope that you consider that when housing your FIFOs, which will have to come, let's be honest, we have the most difficult workforce situation that this nation has ever been confronted with, or should I say lack of workforce to deal with all the infrastructure, both public and private, that is coming our way. But I hope you do consider the central part of our community when it comes to housing your FIFOs. I can think of a large tract of land right in the middle of our community that would be fantastic for a FIFO workforce, close to physios, close to doctors, close to shopping centres, close to the CBD, close to sporting facilities, and part of our community as opposed to living in a cow paddock outside our community. So please consider that for small business. Please consider our community wanting to embrace the FIFO workers rather than denigrating them, because a lot of them become part of our community after construction is finalised. And of course, the parcel of land I'm referring to is the Gladstone Showgrounds, which is underutilised.
I was wondering if you were going to say that.
is used as a caravan park from time to time, as well as a showground facility. No longer houses the Gladstone Speedway, which has a fantastic facility at Banarabi. Consider talking to the state government and the trustees of that, because the public benefit test is such that it would be a wonderful opportunity for this community to embrace a large parcel of land that sits idly by when otherwise it could be utilised in housing and welcoming your workforce, which will number some thousands, and not put extra strain on our current housing community and our other services. Thank you and good luck, and I hope everything works well for you and our community.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. The media now is going to be on the showgrounds future, as opposed to the amazing project that we
I think
have in Stanmore.
Councillor, you mentioned that a long time back that you could have gone into another vocation, and I think that would have suited you as well.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. I'm a bit old for that now.
Councillor Trevor has been a long advocate of better use of the show societies. Or I shouldn't say better use, alternative uses for the show society. Councillor, good luck. Please go somewhere else with this.
Thank you. And, referencing all the FIFO and workers, all the things that CT just said, Boilermakers don't make boilers anymore, but they've got a particular skill set that makes them well equipped to build LNG plants, and also, I suspect, hydrogen production facilities as well. So, but my question was, the Beyond Zero Emissions released a report recently. I think Peter Masters was there, so I'm sure you're aware of it. I'm not sure how much you can or can't say about it. But in the report, renewable energy industrial precincts talks about, because you got mentioned up there in your slides, the 275 kV line. It talks about the potential for major investment from government to develop an industrial precinct here, and it mentions Gladstone in particular, and a 500 kV line that might help boost more projects like yours. I guess I was wondering, you're obviously aware of that report, and do you see that as a viable option? Would that be of assistance to Stanwell and other projects like yours moving forward?
Yes, I think if Gladstone is going to both electrify some of its existing processes to help decarbonise that, plus have hydrogen industry, we're going to need a massive development of the transmission network around the area. So I think at the most recent PowerLink Transmission Planning Forum that they held a couple of weeks ago, they did present a plan. It's not a detailed plan yet, but it's got, I think, 5 different upgrade projects that they're planning to do over the next 10 years to add an additional 10 gigawatts worth of capacity into Gladstone. So I think that's really promising to see PowerLink starting to do that planning. We'll probably, for our project, we'll be one of the early movers, so we'll need the first 1 or 2 of those projects to be done in order to connect our project up. But beyond that, I think the potential is massive. I think PowerLink is starting to move in that direction, and has got some plans, which I think include some 500 kV work as well towards the end of that period in terms of boosting the network.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Before I wrap up, I got a couple of points I want to make, but I've got a question first, which may not have to be answered today. But the liquefaction facility, is it still the plan for that to be common user as well, owned maybe by the port, or is that something you're planning to build as part of the project now?
We're certainly planning to build it, so it's in our project scope at the moment. In terms of how it's operated, that hasn't really been determined yet. Okay. I think what I'd say is that it is a pretty specialised piece of kit. There's only a limited number of companies that have got experience in operating liquefaction plants. One of them is, particularly hydrogen liquefaction plants. One of them is Iwatani, who's one of our project partners. So we'll need to, as that's developed, and that is towards the end of our project that it gets developed, we'll need to look at the operating model there, and we're certainly open to different opportunities or options around how it gets operated. But yeah, at this stage, we're certainly the ones developing it at the moment. So.
Okay, that's exciting, but also there are other proponents that may want to use that. So the last thing I need on that very valuable piece of block of land is 2 liquefaction facilities.
Yes.
One is good, so no doubt Gary and Peter and your team will talk with, and I know you're well aware of the other proponents, so we won't go into them today. Just quickly, you mentioned workforce, and you're using locals, which is awesome, and bringing some others in. And you did mention the effects on local businesses as well. I know that a lot of local businesses suffered last time because higher wages paid in the industry, therefore they couldn't get them. So I know you've got that in mind, but obviously just keep that in mind, because we want to see locals employed, but we also want to see local businesses not be able to afford to keep their staff as well. And the only other thing I'll mention just on trainees and apprentices is something for you to consider, maybe it's for Pete, is there could be a prerequisite for the entry-level trainees and apprentices to come from Gladstone Region School. Just something to consider because while we want to welcome other people to our community, I'd love to see our Gladstone students, Gladstone region students being first choice or maybe the exclusive rights to be able to take these positions going forward. Just something to consider. Okay, no further questions, councillors? Thank you, team. That was a fantastic presentation. I hope people watching online, no doubt the media are, and they give you a good report tomorrow. It is a great project, one of very many happening in our region. Councillors, the officer's recommendation is that the deputation be received. Move, Councillor Churchill.
Happy to move, Mayor Matt. Pleasure, thank you.
Seconded, Councillor Trevor. Put the motion. All in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
No worries. Councillor Trevor. God bless you. Righto, councillors. The next item on the agenda is G4, which is our officers' reports. And the very first officers' reports, G4.1, is our annual report 2022-2023. And I'll hand over to the General Manager of People and Strategy, Carly Quinn. And welcome Mark Holmes as well. Thank you, Carly, and thank you, Mark.
Good morning, councillors. So today we're presenting the 2022-23 annual report for your consideration and recommendation to adopt and publish. The annual report's the second against delivery of our current corporate plan, which is our 2021-26 corporate plan. Earlier this year, we decided to deliver a refined annual report while still meeting our legislative requirements and other important information, but allowing our teams to redirect their energy into more timely storytelling in our quarterly reporting cycle. And as you would have seen from our most recent Q1 report just issued in the last month, that investment has really paid off in how we're able to provide more timely stories for our community. The annual report is Council's primary report to the community, documenting progress and achievements for the financial year, and the report also includes the audited financial statements. The theme for this year's report is Proudly GRC, and the report tells a story of agility, determination and collective delivery across our region, resulting in successfully delivering all 8 of our priority initiatives from our operational plan, which was the first time in 10 years, and also delivering an operating surplus of $13.2 million despite cost pressures associated with a 20-year high inflation. We had total expenditure of $238.9 million, which was inclusive of $62.5 million worth of capital works, and total revenue of $261.9 million. Inflation saw increases this year in our expenses for managing our $2.9 billion worth of assets, particularly in water, waste and wastewater. This meant we were forced to look for efficiencies and better ways to do things more so than ever before. The completion of this annual report means our legislative obligations meets the legislative obligations, as well as providing community confidence and transparency in what we do. Thank you.
Thanks, Carly. Fantastic report. Councillors, any questions or move it, please? Councillor Hanson.
Just, it was reduced, but it's still 180 pages. So what was it reduced from? Three, how many pages?
Oh, I can't recall a number of pages, but the main things we've taken out are all of those extra stories that we now publish in our quarterly report. I don't have the number if anyone in the gallery's got an idea. So approximately 360 last year pages.
Still it has been reduced.
Plenty of good photos though, Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, because you're in one.
One. You're in 4.
Councillor Churchill is in all the pictures.
He must be at all the events.
Yeah,
I would be very happy. I would be very, very happy to move that the report be received.
Adopted?
Adopted.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson. Councillor Grady, seconding or question? Yes, far away. Can I get a seconder first, please, and then we'll go to the questions? You happy to second?
Yeah.
Okay. Second, Councillor Grady. Now, a question, please.
Thank you. Thanks for reducing it. It was much easier to read. The only thing that still concerns me, and we have brought this up in the past, it's on page 35 of the report of the attachment, is about the councillors' meetings. So, you know, for instance, some councillors, it says there's only 19 and whatever else, but some of these councillors have been attending council functions.
Yep.
So, you know, for instance, you know, you might pick 2 or 3 up, like for some of the people. I think it'll give it reflect a truer record of whether it's away, and you know, we know some people have been on sickness benefits and you know, not sickness benefits away because of sickness. But some people do, you know, and it just, I think looking at that reflects, you think, oh, you look at the thing, oh, well, you know, that person didn't turn up or whatever else. So, but we have mentioned that in the previous, previous reports. But yeah, I just thought, you know, I don't know how you could change that or just mention it in the dialogue.
Yeah, you can have an asterisk after.
Yeah.
Tanya.
I thought that was already taken into account.
So the table in the annual report reflects the bare minimum of what we're required to do under the legislation, because the legislation directs us to state how many meetings the councillors attend. But I've already made some notes because governance puts that together. I've made some notes next year that we can add some additional columns in there reflecting when they've missed a meeting due to attending council or business.
Good idea, because I know for a fact, at least one of those meetings I would have been at the National General Assembly of Local Government.
Or on a hospital bed.
That's important. We don't want to be there. Is that for you, Councillor O'Grady? All right, any other questions, councillors? No. Okay, well, let's move Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor O'Grady, that it be adopted. O'Grazier. Put the motion, all in favour. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. G4.2, continuing on, is our financial management report, and I'll hand over to you, Mark Holmes, our General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk. Thanks, Carly.
Thank you, councillors. This item today is about just following on from our annual report. So we've actually got an annual report that included annual financial statements. A big part of that is essentially the report that's done by our QAO and making sure that that essentially is accurate and timely and tells a story. As part of that process, there's a closing report and management letter from Queensland Audit Office prepared by QAO in conjunction with both PwC, who were our contract auditors this year, and taking on board some comments from our council staff along the way. You will see there were some additional issues raised through the year. There were no significant deficiencies raised and no new high risk items. There were some business improvement opportunities, and we've noted those and noted some timelines for those rectifications. So have added them in for your consideration, and we're tabling this in accordance with our requirements under the local government regulation.
Thank you, Mark. The office's recommendation is that we note the final management report. Is any questions, or can I get a mover, please? Move Councillor Goodluck, second Councillor Trevor. Put the motion, all in favour. It's carried. Thank you. And then another one for you, Mark. G4.3, a monthly financial report for the period ending the 31st of October 2023.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item is essentially our monthly financial report for the period ended 31 October 2023. So taking us through to a third of the way through the financial year. Very much taking on board a trend that we've seen in previous years, where we've got our income slightly trailing our expenditure. So around about, we've received a quarter of our rates income and 21% of our income overall. So trailing that a third pro rata basis. But that's generally in line because of our generally slower receipt of grants income and some of those one-off incomes that come in later in the financial year. With respect to our expenditure, pleasing to say we are slightly behind at this point, which is we would like our expenditure to be. So essentially we're at 28% overall in terms of our recurrent expenditure as compared to that 33%. With respect to our capital works, still tracking towards that budget figure of 68.6, and the team are in the process of preparing a new forecast that we'll be tracking against that. So whilst we are below that trend line at the moment, the team is comfortable that we've got issued a number of contracts and they're continuing to outwork those. With respect to our outstanding rates, this is our first report that includes our outstanding rates for the 23-24 reporting period. Slight increase in the outstanding at the end of October, so you'll see there that we're at 12.62% compared to 12.33% the previous year. We are in the very early stages of our essentially follow-up process with our outstanding rates. and we're hopefully to put some downward pressure on that as the year progresses. But happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions to the General Manager, please? Councillor Churchill?
Yeah, thanks for that, Mayor Matt. Yeah, pleasing to also note the borrowings are decreasing as we make, as those loan repayments are being made. My question, yeah, so that was pleasing to know as well. My question was relevant to the current marketplace out there at the moment, where you've indicated in your report 4,774 ratepayers who pay their rates in advance. So, and whilst that's pleasing to read, I'd just like to know, are we on an exponential increase with those ratepayers? And how do we compare to other local governments of our same size and nature in relation to the amount of ratepayers who pay their rates in advance?
Probably not a stat that we probably collect or compared in terms of those that have actually prepaid. Certainly what we do track is our outstanding rates, and that's something that's easily comparable through, generally, your annual financial statements such that we've just tabled, because that's something that every council needs to table in a very consistent manner. Certainly happy to take that on notice and report back with respect to that. But certainly that is a slight uptick in that. So generally we have been for a long time seeing that we've got generally between 3,500 have been essentially prepaid, and now we've seen a big uptick in that. So that's pleasing to see.
Yeah, I'd just be interested to know. Yeah. I mean, 4,700, we're nearly to the 5,000 mark, and whether we are on a trajectory to, on a percentage-wise, to try and secure 20% or 30% in the current market environment where the cost of living is, having an impact.
Yeah, well, we have just over 30,000 rate assessments, and when we start to outwork those, that's certainly a significant proportion of those.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. No further questions. Can I get a mover for the officer's recommendation, please, that we adopt the monthly financial statement? Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Branthwaite. Put the motion, all in favour, and it is carried. Thank you, Mark. Councillor reports. We don't have any written council reports. Would anyone like to raise? Councillor Hanson.
Mayor Matt, I attended the LAWMAC, which is the Local Authority Waste Management Action Committee group meeting in Rockhampton over 2 days last week, Thursday and Friday. They've already got their reports and the meeting notes on their website. We had reports, varied reports that I always make available to you. This time, our People and Strategy General Manager, Carly Quinn, has generously offered to put all this together so that I can deliver it, or we can deliver it to you just in one package, rather than have to go into the website. Other interesting notes were that our regional waste management plans have been approved finally and completed. So I don't know whether you knew that. You knew that, Kylie? Yeah. Yeah. We also had a report from Rudy, I forgot his last name, from LGOQ, Rudy Pretzler, regarding the action they've already taken on some of the conference motions regarding waste, so that's good. And the only other thing of note was that, or very much of note, is that Mary Field, who's been the Secretary of LAWMAC for 25 years, has retired, and she's been replaced by Christine Blanchard, who most of you may know because she's been in the waste industry working for government and for other organisations and for council as well in many roles. So she's a very competent person taking over that secretary role. So that report, once compiled and put together, we'll send it out to all councillors. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hanson. Any further council reports? Councillor O'Grady.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thursday night I had the privilege of attending the Parliamentary Annex to meet with Mark Bailey and Bicycle Queensland, and some great things for bicycle users in cities and towns that government are going to work more with people to try and get people to use bicycles to get to work and stuff like that, for the reason being to take cars off the road. So it was a great night, and it was really good to catch up with people in that industry and what they're doing for councils and state government and federal government backing. So yeah, it was great.
Nice. Thank you, Councillor O'Grady. No further councillor reports. Councillor Muscat.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly, just mention that I attended the Gladstone Chamber of Commerce and Industry AGM on behalf of Rick, and I made sure I mentioned that he really wanted to be there, but he couldn't.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, councillor.
he has been involved with the Chamber of Commerce for many, many years. So, and just wanted to congratulate the new committee, but especially say farewell to Joe, the former president, and that has been there for about 8 years, I understand. He's been great for the chamber and just in general, a great guy. So, congratulations, Joe. And just, I also wanted to mention quickly that we had the final meeting of the economic recovery group in relation to the last bushfires. So, Councillor Cameron and I attend that meeting, and we didn't have too many, but it was very efficient, and we're very happy with what's happened and how our team has managed to deal with all of the consequences of the bushfires. So thank you to the team for that, especially Julie and Carly and a few others. Sorry, I don't want to leave anyone out, but everyone, thank you. And just last but not least, I just wanted to mention that I wanted to say congratulations to everybody that has finished Year 12. And we had and we're still having a number of award nights and proms and all that. So it's really nice to see all our children, enjoying their last year, having parties and celebrating. And we have a huge amount of kids that do extremely well, and we should be very proud of that. And I'm going to have a child in Year 12 next year, so...
Oh, God, I thought she was going to have a child.
No. No more. No more kids from me. Yeah, that's it. So, thanks, kids, and I hope your future is wonderful. We're always here to support you. Thank you.
And let's hope they're very safe on schoolies. Yeah. I remember my children going on schoolies. It's a terrible time of the year, but anyway, a few more days and they'll be home. Any further council reports? Okay, there's no urgent items, there's no notice of motion, there's no confidential items. I declare the meeting closed at 10:25 or 24, whatever that clock says. Thank you.